Greetings, salutations. Welcome to the second video in our 201 series, TESL, Pillars of TESL? Pillars of TESL, TESL Pillars. Intermediate tutorials to take you from the basics to an intermediate going on advanced player. So, last time, if you haven't watched the video, go back and watch it because we're going to be referencing a lot of stuff from it. We discussed how to build an ideal deck on paper. Today, we are going to be looking at what you put in the deck as part of 4 different types of cards and how you plan around the deck on paper not doing exactly what it should. So, I'm going to give you the same warning I gave at the beginning of the last video, but in brief, there's gonna be math. It's gonna be a lot of math, but we have an updated spreadsheet. It links to it down in the description, somewhere down there. And it is shared out for you to copy and use all of the math we are looking at and all of the equations we're using today on your own. So, with that said, let's get started. We're going to be revisiting some of the same decks we looked at last time. And the first one we're going to start with is a mid-range deck. Again, we're going to be looking at aggro, mid-range, and control. My definition for mid-range: not trying to win by turn 6. Sometimes I think I say turn 5. It's turn 5 or 6, interchangeable. And has at least one comeback mechanic in. So, Jonkvani, we discussed the curve last time. What makes this a mid-range deck? Aside from the fact, what makes it a mid-range deck? We're not trying to win by turn 6. We're trying to win by turn 11. Easiest way to kind of look at that on a mid-range deck, take what your largest card is, add 2. It's 11. So, we're trying to win by turn 11. We have comeback mechanics. We have Brynjolf, Queen, Moon-Touched Guardian, House Kinsman. Ways to gain health and try to come back into a game that we are otherwise losing if it were a straight race. And what makes us not control? Part of me wants to say we have a defined win condition besides concede, but we are playing more proactive for the... It's more accurate to say we are playing more proactive for the board and attempting to go face when able. We're always asking ourselves 2 questions. The first question: if I started to race my opponent now, would I win? And if the answer, regardless of the answer to that, the second question: who is going to have better top decks than me? Or who's going to have better top decks, me or them? We'll get into reading decks and figuring out the nuances of that in the video to come after this, but we're going to be touching on the start of that today. Specifically the first question: whether or not we should be racing. Mid-range, we should be able to answer that question yes most of the time. If the answer is no, we are trying to make the answer yes, to develop an unwinnable advantage over our opponent. Unbeatable advantage over our opponent, however you want to phrase it. But I digress. It's time to bring in our updated and friendly spreadsheet. Brace yourselves, it's about to get bright. So, you'll notice we have some changes here. I've added a prophecies section. And I add an ideal prophecies down here. I don't think I explained the gray last time. It just kind of indicates what's being worked on and what's not. It's an internal code for myself. But, carrying on. Added prophecies section, we'll be getting to that. There is now a yes-no toggle on the ring that adjusts these numbers. We won't be looking at that. What we are looking at, specifically, is this this prophecies section. That's about it, because most of everything else is going to be cards. But I wanted to highlight those changes over the spreadsheet from the last session as they were not described. So, let's rehide this. And let me pull up my outline so I keep myself on topic and don't start ranting about whatever the day is, like, look at that lizard. What does that lizard want? Why is that lizard here? And should we stab that lizard? Sorry, not getting distracted. So, there are 4 kinds of cards that we're going to be talking about today. And we're using generalizations. Some cards might fit into multiple categories. And I'm going to argue many cards will fit into multiple categories. We're going to look at the 4 categories first. Threats. Cards that, if not answered, will win us the game. These can also include cards that are hard to answer. Premium examples of those. Mammoth, it's a 4/4 for 3. It is not the easiest card to answer on curve. Moontouch Guardian. It is either giving +2/+2 to hand, which we could put on a charge creature, which is a... well, it's not really a threat there. Alright, skip Moontouch Guardian. They're not a threat. I was thinking of one of the later cards we're going to come to. Alfeet Conjurer puts 2 bodies on the board. Is hard to answer with a single card. It's gotten easier since the nerf now that Ice Storm kills them both, but still, having one card answer another isn't necessarily... you don't play around that in every match. Temple Conjurer. It's a threat. Ald Valathi with the Rally specifically is a threat. Daggerfall is a threat more to control because of the card draw that it offers, but card draw or repeated card draw in the form of rewarding this is a method of being a threat, as it's a threat to card advantage. Razum is a threat in that way, such that he's alive, you will continue to get cards. But that's threats. Answers. Well, the easiest way to define an answer is it is a card that answers a threat. Simplest thing to say. No, my camera's over it, you can't see it. Negation. Lightning Bolt. Cards that, when played, answer other cards. I know. It's complicated. But we're not gonna review it again. Shadowfen answers a support. Charge can count as an answer, because this is just a 4/4 body that I could play to answer threats that are in field lane. You can play Charge proactively and not go face. Sorry, aggro players, I hate to burst your bubble, but Control can run Charge too, and it can make sense for Control to do so. Cycle. Thieves Guild Recruit. It is a card that, in the terms of Magic, cantrips. A card that will replace itself. Sly Marshblade, kinda, because if you have 7 or more Magicka, you're likely to get a card draw from it. Daggerfall Mage, kinda. But the purest form of Cycle is a card that, when played, regardless, you're getting a card. Sun and Shadow, it's a tutor effect, meaning you get to pick what you're cycling into, but it is still cycle as it pulls a card from your deck. Cards that are not cycle are cards like Galen. Galening in Thieves Guild does not add more cycle to my deck. Cycle is only something that reduces the size of my deck. Shuffling in 3 cards that then cantrip themselves out does not count as giving the deck more cycle. It could be a good reason to Galen a card in, but I want to make sure we're clear on our definition. Fourth type, contingencies. So contingencies are cards that are specifically there to counter very specific plays or to counter your deck not doing what it's supposed to do. I.e., we looked at this deck last time and said, oh, we should be able to, for the first, I think it was 5 or 6 turns, have a card that we're supposed to be able to play on curve. Well, what happens if we miss turn 3? By some weird incident, we get that opening hand we discussed last video, where we just end up here for our first 4 draws. Well, we don't have a lot of those contingencies, because we only have 3 prophecies, but prophecies are a contingency. That's where our handy-dandy spreadsheet's going to come in later. Just kind of pointing out something. Other contingencies can be, and we're not running it here, Ice Storm. Cards that remove multiple cards for 1 resource. Let's go out and just kind of look through them here. We're going to be reviewing blue because I'm in blue. Contingencies that aren't prophecies are Firestorm once I get to it. Nope, aha. Deal 2 damage to all creatures in a lane. It's also a contingency because it has prophecy. It's a good contingency card. Ice Storm, we discussed that. I'm going to tap 6 here to get to it. It deals 3 damage to all creatures in a lane. It is a good contingency. Now, these contingencies don't necessarily, you don't want to play them in mid-range because you're also wiping your own board, but in control, they're good for a board has gotten out of hand and I need to deal with it. Some tempo-related contingency cards could be Glacial Dragon. When you play it, it does 2 damage. Switching over to green just to get a little bit of the other colors some love. A contingency could be... Where are you, Murkwater Scourge? I'm being blind. Murkwater Savage. Butcher. He costs 4. There he is. He puts a curse into hand, and so in some control decks, specifically Banelord, he's gonna get multiple kills per creature, and when you play him, he immediately does a thing that lets you immediately affect board. That is going to count him as a contingency card. So, I mentioned we're focusing this on deck building. So, let's get back to our mid-range deck. What cards do you include? Well, in mid-range, you've got 2 kind of options. You're straddling the area between not quite a control deck, not quite an aggro deck. So you are trying to look for cards that give you card advantage, and card advantage can come in 2 ways. Either you are killing multiple creatures with 1. Let's say you are versus an aggro deck and you're trying to play the control. So that can come in the size of Mammoth. It's likely to 2-for-1 against aggro. Troll. It's likely to 2-for-1. Temple Conjurer gets you 2 bodies. Each one of those bodies is likely to 1-for-1. Wardcrafter, because of the ward, can be used to trade. And so on and so forth. You are looking for cards that try to do that, and then on the flip side, let's say your first is control. You are looking for cards that they are going to have to spend 2 resources to remove. Now there's going to be some overlap there. Young Mammoth. Bleak Coast Troll. Sure, there are cards that will remove them. Cast into Time. Javelin. Lightning Bolt. But those are limited resources you're baiting out of your opponent early before you're starting to play even chunkier bodies. Brynjolf, Gatekeeper, Alfiq, Emmerich. You're trying to run them out of removal by just playing, well, in this deck, big body into big body into big body, or multiple bodies to say, alright, I played 1 card and I have 2 creatures. Barring some of the contingency cards, Firestorm, which doesn't work on either of those, or Ice Storm, which works on both, most of the time, you're forcing them to have multiple removals for 1 card, which you need as you're going face and giving them runes, and they're in more cards. Cycle is a way of also getting additional bodies on the board while still maintaining your hand size. So, mid-range, you're looking for card advantage. Oh, Elderly Matron. Put a random animal into your hand. Beast Caller. Put a random animal on the board. That's really about all there is to be said for those. Contingencies. Those are your threats. Well, let's go in order. Step back. Order. We talked about threats. Contingencies. In mid-range, your contingencies are going to be focused on how can my contingencies help me go face? Looking at you, Lightning Bolt. Or how can my contingencies answer things that absolutely need to be answered? So, Corner Club Gambler. Any creature that's increasing in attack per turn, or, well, example, Pilfer. Where Pilfer gets stronger each turn. Well, Negation. Well, Bolt. Let's say they've got Drain or a support. Well, that's where Shadowfen comes in. Leaf Lurker lets me get tempo while I'm removing a card of theirs that maybe had to trade, or we were able to bump with one of our creatures but not kill. Mighty Conjuring, it has Guard. Guard isn't the strongest of contingencies, but it kind of fills the role, as you're putting something between your opponent and your face that they have to hit or deal with a contingency of their own. Yeah, I mean, we cycle. You're wanting to keep your hand full. Ultimately, cycle is best determined by, I played a game. Did I run out of cards? Yes. Play 3 more games. In those, did I run out of cards? Yeah, I consistently run out of cards. Add more cycle. Do I ever run out of cards? No. Have I been overdrawing? Actually, yes I have. Take some cycle out. There's no hard and fast rule there for mid-range. It's all about playing your deck and feeling it out. And then playing with, as we said last time, the spreadsheet on, well, where do I have room to put in cycle? Where do I want cycle in my deck? Do I want it early? Do I want to find cycle after I've had a chance to play all my threats and maybe try to refill on 6 using the various options in red? Be they Sharp-Eyed Ashcan, which I think is an underplayed card. Discard your hand, then draw 3 cards, as long as you plot them. Triumphant Jarl. At 7, you have access to Wilds Incarnate. Just potential ways of getting cycle in for different types of deck. The first 2 being for aggro. Incarnate, kind of for aggro, but Control can make some good use of it too. And Singleton can make use of it, because Singleton can replace runes. But I digress. So let's look at aggro. In aggro, you are going to be running more threats than answers. But if you run all threats and no answers, you will lose. Because all you are doing is you are rolling the dice and hoping everything works out. So, let's look at this deck. One of the 4 I took to Master Series. We've got our threats. In fact, we've got lots of threats. We've got threats we can play on turn 1 just to get cards out there. 5th Legion, Orc Clan, Rift Thane, Bit Lion. A lot of nice, chonky cards. Withered Hand is a threat versus action decks, because it directly threatened, if Withered Hand survives, I will win the game. That is the definition of threat. Now, it is only a threat to certain decks, but it is still a threat nonetheless. It's actually one of those that is also an answer, because it answers actions in my opponent's hand. So it kind of sits in the line there. But, so, this deck, I want to be done by turn 6. I am an aggro deck. As such, my high end is having a Marauder. But I do run some contingencies. Dawnstar Healer. After an enemy rune is broken, you gain 3 health. If I am in a race, and I can break 2 opponents' runes, gaining 6 health, while going face, might be all I need to stabilize and win. He has won me many games. Hive Defender. It's a decently statted guard. Again, helps me win races. He is a contingency for my deck. Now, I will add a little caveat here. My aggro decks do tend toward the mid-rangey side, because one of my personal deck building rules is every deck needs to have a way to come back into a game it's not winning off the start. Because I don't like flipping a coin versus other aggro decks and going, oh, heads, I win. Or, I have ring, I win. I think ring is balanced, I'm not going to get into that now, but I want to be able to come back and play from behind. And even in decks that are trying to focus aggro, I still like having stuff like that, so we're running Hive Defenders. But anyway. Now, a lot of my answers in this deck are almost always going to double as burst. So, Raiding Party giving me charge. Reminder, charge is an answer. I could use that as an answer, or I could go face with it. If we were running Crushing Blow, it answers cards, or it can go face. Dawnbreaker can help me answer a card by just being able to trade, or I can send it face. You don't see a lot of just straight removal that can only target creatures. There's no javelins, no casted at times. Why? Because I'm aggro. I have made the choice not to run those. Because I want my stuff to be burst related. Contingencies. I am running 6 prophecies, which is not a statistically large enough. So, all right, we're gonna get to our spreadsheet here. Spreadsheet and spreadsheet. So, when I say I am not running a statistically high number of prophecies, I just noticed my internet decided to play games with me, but it doesn't affect our recording. Aha! So, prophecies, statistically viable. In order, in a 50-card deck, to get 1 prophecy from a rune, on average, I need 10 cards. Why? Because that means 1 in every 5 cards is a rune, 1 in every 5 cards is a prophecy, you have 5 cards. Therefore, by running exactly 20%, 10, 1 of those will be a prophecy. 2 at 20, 3 at 30, 4 at 40, or if I run 50 cards, I am guaranteed to have all 5 runes be prophecies. But if we go up to 75, you'll see that because my internet is cut out, because I am on my home network, not my phone network at the moment, theoretically, that number would go up. You can play with it on your own if you go to the link in the description and take a look at it. I'm going to minimize that. So, I digress. We are running Crusader's Assault as an answer to Guard. We have other answers in the deck, but you'll see, again, I can still use Crusader's Assault to go face. But now let's look at the other side. Let's look at Control. So on Control, we're taking a different aspect to threats. Our threats are going to be mostly late game. Because we are looking for, and I believe the technical term is, nuclear bombs. Cards that, when played, radically threaten our opponent's life total, or drastically change the existing board state. Iron Atronach does 12 damage if it's able to go face, and can't be targeted with actions. When your opponent has 30 starting health, that can radically change how many turns they think they can live Marak. Change the board state. Devay Fear. Summons daughters. And shoots a random 6 damage missile. Supreme Atromancer puts a lot of stats on the board. And you see where that's going. We also have some 12 Magicka combos using Alter, Conjuration Tutor, well, 13 Magicka combo with Conjuration Tutor, Mighty Conjuring, just Atronach shenanigans. But so we're running bombs as our threats. Not really a whole lot of threats here, although there are some, as Bruma would threaten aggro. Ald Velothi getting the rally as a threat. But our threats down here are only really threats versus aggro. Control doesn't give two shites whether we play a Golden Initiate. Because it's like, oh, you healed. That doesn't matter because I'm waiting for this. Whereas aggro sees Golden Initiate and they just see rage. As, how dare my opponent play Drain? Doth they not know that faces the place? I would give a Smork impression, but I'm not feeling up to it at the moment. So, I digress. Cycle. We are running some Cycle in here. We've got, Mudcrab Merchant is not Cycle. That is card draw. Are we running any Cycle? Archcannon Exalted is Cycle. Alter is Cycle because it pulls cards, specific cards, from our deck and puts them in play. It's Cycle at the cost of other creatures, but that is our draw engine in this deck. Nakreen is also tactically Cycle, so is Laneth. But anyway, so answers. A lot of our answers here are focused on how can I get the most creatures killed for the least amount of effort. So, Wardcrafter. Grizzly Gourmet, being hopefully able to remove a creature, well, cook a creature, when it comes into play, and hopefully being able to trade. Cloud Rest, reducing a creature, allowing us to either trade into it or get some extra value out of an execute, killing up to a 6-attack creature. Then we've got some for support. We've got some prophecies. Hive Defender, it's really hard to kill Hive Defender with one card if you're aggro. So hopefully getting some value there. Removing cards from the deck. Just Reverberating Strike, just in case you're against one of those people who uses Soul Split 2 times in the first couple turns and they've got a bunch of those little spirits, just remove them all. Triple Ice Storm. But you're getting the idea. How can I kill the most creatures, fewest cards? Beckonar's Will is also low-key really great at that. Not enough people play this card. Okay. Contingencies. We are not running a statistically high enough chance of prophecies, but we are running some. We are running Javelins, Cloud Rest. If they hit, great. We're not counting for that for our deck to win. I can actually let me pull a different control deck where we have teched in a significant number of prophecies. I don't think it's Aldmeri Dominion. Looking to see if I have my Guildsworn support deck, because that is a control deck. Don't tell me I got rid of my Guildsworn support deck. That would make me sad right now. I have a strong feeling I'm about to be sad. I probably decided I could rebuild it. And I never got around to rebuilding it. Alright. I know I have a prophecy deck around here. This is why we should do this prep beforehand. And I shouldn't just try to do it now. What's your prophecy count? Ah! We got one. Alright. So this is a high elf control deck. Bordering on combo, because it's trying to use Chanter of Akatosh. We've done a video on this deck. It's elsewhere on our YouTube channel if you want to take a look at it. But you'll see we're running 28 prophecies. Let me see if we've reconnected for our spreadsheet. We have. So let me put that back on. So, 75 card deck. 28 prophecies is really close to 30. And we are running... I want to put this whole thing in. I'm not going to put the whole thing in. We're just going to look at this prophecy box here. 28. 1.86 prophecies per rune. So that says I have teched in enough prophecies that we're pretty much guaranteed 1 per game, and we're likely to get 2 per game, which will hopefully provide us an extra contingency against aggro. Rehide spreadsheet. And then we've got a whole bunch of high drops because we are control and just trying to absolutely profit at that end. Although we do run ways of discounting it. But you'll see we're running triple Firestorm here. Looks like I decided Ice Storm wasn't worth it because we're running Firestorm and because Ice Storm kills Chanter. That was the decision. But that's an example of teching in prophecies to specifically counter aggro. Yellow is great at that. And you can also tech in prophecies if, say, you are Prophecy Battle Mage, which is a different form of aggro. But, next up, let me pull up my outline so I don't get lost. Where were we? We were talking about aggro and what you're putting in aggro. So, last thing I want to talk about, revisit, if you will, is contingencies. Because there's one type of contingency we haven't talked about, and that's because it's not a single card. It is a contingency game plan. So, we talked about win conditions back in basics. Quick refresher for those of you who either haven't watched it or just don't remember it. And you're like me and have a short-term memory. The first thing I do when I'm building a deck is I build a win condition. In this case, my win condition is going to be Prophecy Battle Mage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some nice prophecies here. Alright, we're going to go into here. We're going to grab all the prophecies that allow us to do all of the face. I don't want you. I want the alt art. Alt art is pretty. We're going to go into here. We're going to grab some tempo prophecies, some aggro prophecies. I like Spear of Embers. Is that all I want? I tend to go more prophecy heavy with my decks than most people do. I think I'm okay putting in Fear Totem and Cast Out. Well, no, if I'm running Fear Totem, I don't need Cast Out. So we're at 39, so 4 of our runes are likely to be prophecies. That's our win condition. We're just going to go face, and if they're trying to race us going face, awesome. We're going to get more cards, and we're going to go face harder. And this is going to be based on a deck that I used to get me to Legend a while back. What if I wanted to be sneaky? And you'll remember that there's certain 12-cost cards that can be really annoying if they're played. Again, we're not going to say which cards. We're not going to say how we think they should be played. We're just going to say they're... Imagine there's a 12-cost card out there that puts multiple creatures on the board and is really annoying for decks to deal with. Let's say we're seeing just a lot of this imaginary card on the ladder. What would be a nice counter to it? Well, I mean, we could just improvise weapon. Giving breakthrough also does help us with guard. Because it's a contingency, we're only going to run 2 of them. We're going to pick Bog Lurcher. Bog Lurcher is a 9/1. Not likely to live. Anything that pings removes it. But hey, we'll just put Bog Lurcher in, because why not? And I don't... Hello, cat. Can I help you? Are you going to stay or are you going to go? Sorry. I did not anticipate this distraction. but a furry distraction has arrived. So I don't know. I mean, there's Belligerent Giant here, but, Unstoppable Rage. I mean, you guys know the combo I'm putting in. We can play Bog Lurcher, Improvised Weapon, Unstoppable Rage, blow through a lane, and it serves as a potential alternate victory for us. Also, if we have creatures on the board already, we could potentially use that to wipe out a lane of, say, crabs that were played late, because this thing exists now and is quite popular. But so we've got one alternate game plan in here. Now we could add a couple other contingencies. So a contingency I like putting in Prophecy Battle Mage is Syl, because she will create a Dementia lane, which, if you have the highest attack, it does 3 damage to your opponent's face. But if they kill Syl and they have the highest attack, it starts pinging your face, and then you start getting prophecies. We'll put in Lyris, as that's a good way to counter Drain. Then we've got 2 extra. Let's just grab some Blighted Elits. I only have 1. I would probably fill that up with 3. I don't feel like crafting them right now. We're just going to grab 2 Afflicted Elits. Also, that curve is well under what it needs to be. We could tweak this a little bit. Maybe drop a Prophecy. We'll only run 38. So there could be tweaking to the deck, but the Unstoppable Rage, Bog Lurcher, Improvised Weapon combo, A, is something they're not likely to expect to come from a Prophecy Battle Mage. So unexpected on the ladder can be helpful. B, the combo pieces of this contingency win condition, specifically against Telvanni and Tribunal, a little bit of Redoran, that contingency win condition, all of these cards can potentially help us win the game regardless. He can't answer a 4-cost 9/1. That's gonna hurt. And maybe if you're feeling you want something a little less risky, you could go in here and grab, like, Lumbering Ogrim. It's a 7/4, but it gets 3 extra health, which is nice. But regardless, so you've got your alternate win condition. They all help you achieve your win regardless. But together, they can help you win games you would not otherwise win. Let's just problem save your deck. That means I've probably lost internet again. That's fine. Teehee. So that's what we're looking at for an alternate win condition. Looks like I got stuck here. I think my internet is out. Let me check on it real quick. Yep, internet did cut back out, so we're going to be stuck on the screen for a little bit. Maybe I'll pull up the spreadsheet for us to look at. But let's check my nose. I think we're almost done. Contingency game or win conditions. Mid-range, usually that contingency win condition is Drain, because you're specifically trying to beat out aggro. It can be Burst, and just including an abnormal amount of Burst in your deck if you're saying, hey, I want to be able to win from hand. Control, almost all of your control win conditions are alternate win conditions for everyone else. So they don't really have alternate win conditions. But including an alternate win condition in, say, a combo control deck could be something nice. Or having like a Nixox combo that you try to combo off with as your win con. Or if you don't have all the pieces, just create an unwinnable advantage for your opponent, or against your opponent. But yeah, so those are the different types of cards you're looking to put in each deck. Aggro, you're focusing on threats that can go face quickly, so lower cost threats. You are looking for answers that you can double as burst against a face. Contingencies, you're looking for possibly an alternate win condition, or, well, and all of those extra contingency bits you want to help you achieve going face. So, example was the deck we built, Unstoppable Rage. It helps you clear guards, if nothing else. Mid-range, you're looking for cards, chunk cards, wide cards, just cards that allow you to get card advantage, either in trading versus aggro, or in receiving damage or attempting to be controlled by control. A lot of your threats are going to be those bigger cards. They're going to be spread throughout your curve, starting as early as 2, but going as late as 6 or 7. Caveat, I missed something. Cycle. Your aggro cycle, you might want to include some late game refill for your hand, or some middle game threat type cards like East March Crusader that can get you a decent body on board while still representing a threat to your opponent. And, well, sorry, decent body on board representing threat to your opponent and draw you a card. So, that's cycle. Back to mid-range. Mid-range. You want many for one. You want to focus on having drain so that you can play from behind. You still want a lot of your answers to be able to go face, but you're going to likely tech in ones that can't, that do very niche things for you. So teching in more silence, teching in like Sorcerer's Negation, Javelins, cards that would have a control aspect to them. Mechanar's Will, because seriously, more people need to play Mechanar's Will. And then contingencies, you might start teching in a certain number of prophecies, just in case you start to get aggroed. Or if you're versus control, you might have teched in, like you could play a mid-range Guildsworn that runs a rage combo as a, yeah, if I run into control and they control me down, I'll just Bog Lurcher rage combo them. Or Lumbering Ogrim rage combo them, or Nervous Giant rage combo them. Depending on what level of health, we can revisit the screen, health you're wanting to stick onto your chunk cards. Because the healthier they are, the better they are actually being played out versus having to be saved in hand for combo. And then control. Your control, you were trying to focus on getting as much removed from the board while spending as little effort as possible. Your threats, they're all going to be late game bombs, things that radically change the board state as you are able. If you wanted something early, you could use things like Mammoth. You could use things like Histgrove, where Histgrove's a threat later, but it gets you ramp now. And trying to get to your Ice Storms, get to your nice combo pieces that you can remove, use your early game answers, late game threats to win you the game. Cycle, you want to be churning through your deck as quick as possible. As much cycle as you can fit in the deck without overdrawing is great. Contingencies, heavy relial on profit. Relial? I used the right word. Haha! Heavy relial on prophecies, heavy relial on AoE removals, Ice Storm, Firestorm, I guess Fireball. Immolating Blast has seen some play. We're not going to do a card-by-card review here. Maybe we'll get to that in the future. But all in all, that's what you're aiming for. So, next videos, what we're going to be looking at is specifically picking up decks, budget decks, how we could take the principles we've learned over the previous 2 videos and use those to improve upon the decks we've got. I will be reviewing how we can use the spreadsheet in practice, how we can use the various threats and adjusting our curve based on what we discussed here today to improve upon those, and we'll try to hit one of each type of deck. And then we'll actually get some gameplay in. Maybe discuss some of the more advanced gameplay concepts on what you use to target what. But that might be saved for the video after, where we're going to be focused entirely on gameplay and how do you read your opponent's deck? How do you know what you're supposed to mulligan? How do you know if I should run 2 of these in my deck versus 3 when there's other alternatives? And then we're going to look at our Feels Good episode and how you can get involved in the community, how you can get feedback from the community on your decks, how the community can make you a better player, how it can help you enjoy the game, and make this something that you're not just good at, but you're good at and you enjoy. So, with that said, it's been a pleasure. Sorry it bugged out here at the end. I'm not going to record it. We got everything we wanted to cover today, and we just had to stare at Hit and Run and lumbering over them. So, take care. Best of vibes to you all. All of our info for the spreadsheet and where to find us on Twitch, Discord, that's all down there in the description. Twitter. Hope you guys stick around for the next video. Go back into our archives, hit our channel, look at some of our old videos. We've got gameplay, we've got our basics tutorial. If what you're seeing here, you're looking for something more new player oriented. But otherwise, see you on the ladder.